What's up guys, SkyKevin here, and today I wanted to talk about an update regarding the current state of Last Oasis and what's going on in game. I'm going to go over some of the key changes that I've noticed in the last month or so, as well as anything new that's been added in the recent Part 2 Volcano update. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up with this and other games that I'm playing. So, let's get started.
Monster, how should I feel? Creatures lie here, looking through the window. Monster, how should I feel? Creatures lie here, looking through the window.
To begin, I thought I would go over the current state of the player base in Last Oasis. As of the beginning of August and of making this video, currently based on the Steam charts, we can see about 1,200 players on average at peak hours and 800 players during the off hours. It's no surprise that Last Oasis has been bleeding players ever since launch, and this trend has continued for the last month or so, with the player change being a drop of roughly 50% over the last 30 days. As this player base has dwindled, the dynamic map of Last Oasis has shrunk accordingly. Before, it sprawled further than the screen could even fit. Now, every single server from Oceania to the EU tiles can be seen on the same screen. That being said, because the servers have been converging together and compacting the player base, you can still find that there are many active players in any tiles that you go to. I would say that since the player base has shrunk to such a smaller ratio, you might even find that now there are even more players, given that there are less open or free tiles to choose from. In terms of the meta, there have been a few changes to the overall gameplay and PvP aspects of the game. High quality walkers are no longer necessary to remain competitive because modules can no longer be stacked in the hundreds to give an unfair advantage to a specific walker. Additionally, gas masks have been added to the game, and the overall damage and rate of damage for gas clouds has been reduced. Without the mask, you can find that you can run in and out of the clouds without any problem, making it no longer really part of the meta. The new meta is a mix of ballistas and repeaters. The ballistas are typically used for direct damage, taking out walker legs as they always have been, and the repeaters now have a new explosive mine that can be shot into the air to slowly drop down onto an enemy walker. Usually you would operate by taking the legs off of an enemy walker and then using the mines to clear the rest of the deck. In essence, the mines have replaced gas clouds. There have been also some other modifications and changes to the game as well, such as the ability to farm lava-based weapons and use lava in unique ways, like using it in a water hose for instance. Additionally, with this comes many different types of explosives, and if you're holding or you keep these explosives inside of a container, they can explode when they're set on fire. This also works for players as well. These updates did add some nice variation to the weapons and PvP aspects of the game, but largely the same weapons and armor as before are still being used by most clans, with the exception of a few flame weapons, or the flame ammunition I mentioned earlier. Lastly, to address the overall state of the game, I think the developers definitely need to focus on adding more PvE content to the game, to focus on keeping a player base that is growing instead of dwindling. They still haven't released things like the giant sandworm event, and for the most part, they need to incorporate a lot more variation into the regular mobs that you're fighting. Currently, the only thing players really need to farm are Rupus for the Rupu gel, and after that, every other monster is pretty much optional. I think if they included more variation in these aspects of it, they would be able to retain a lot more of the player base to spend their time enjoying the farming and resource collection side of things, and implement more challenging creatures to make it feel more like a survival game. The roadmap for Last Oasis has also been released, and in the next update they mentioned that trade markets and the use of flots to implement a whole new trade system into the game would be a thing, and maybe an opportunity to please those PvE players that may want to focus on trading instead of PvP and keep them as part of the population. This way you have something for the PvP players to try and hunt down, while the PvE players can still do their own thing. Although the population has fallen, I think there may be some opportunity for it to hang in there if they keep the development focused on these areas and encourage player growth. For the last 2 weeks or so, the population has seemed to level out a little bit, even though it is currently at a low point. So they may still have a sleeping population that are waiting for some big and intuitive update to come from the developers before they decide to jump back into the game. I would say though that Last Oasis definitely still has some potential if they can add more content to the game before it is completely empty. The server converging system has done a fantastic job of keeping players interacting and working with the population changes, and I think this system will ultimately be what can keep the game alive with its necessary PvP content, as long as it takes before the further updates can be released. As a reminder, make sure you subscribe if you want to see more updates like this one, and I'm hoping to do a lot more for other videos in the future. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. and I'll see you next time.